Some people do not make the connection between stress and pain, but for some people, the meditation and the mindfulness can help them to just open up to the possibility that their pain can be influenced by them, by their thoughts, by their way of being, and even by their physical tension. It's all interconnected.
Dr. Carol Greco is a licensed clinical psychologist, researcher, faculty member at the University of Pittsburgh, and mindfulness teacher.
Pain can feel so hopeless.
When my pain increases, especially with chronic pain, there can often be a holding in and a tightening around the painful part. We don't always see a reduction in the amount or the intensity of pain, but the amount that pain interferes, that gets dialed down. My pain's still there, it's just not bothering me so much.
Like a change of perception of the pain. The pain may still be there, but there's a change in relationship to it. What is that link between stress and mental health?
How much time do you have?
Yeah. Hello and welcome everyone. I am so thrilled to share today's conversation with a dear friend and colleague, Dr. Carol Greco. She's a licensed clinical psychologist and faculty member at the University of Pittsburgh. Her background is exceptional, and she truly brings something rare to the table. She's a lifelong researcher as well as a meditator. Dr. Greco has over 30 years of clinical research expertise in behavioral medicine, specializing in pain, chronic illness, and mindfulness meditation. She's a UMass certified mindfulness-based stress reduction or MBSR teacher, and also a teacher trainer through the Global Mindfulness Collaborative. Her CV is so extensive, friends, that it will take us probably an hour to go through it. But one of the things I so appreciate about Dr. Greco is her humbleness and true kindness. So friends, if you're facing any stress or pain, I want to learn from someone who's in the trenches of the research and the practice, then join us today. Dr. Greco, a warm welcome to you to the Pause to Elevate podcast.
Thank you so much, Qasim. It's wonderful. It's delightful to be here with you.
Thank you so much. I've been so looking forward to this. And I feel, I'm sharing like a secret with the world, which is I have this opportunity to get to know you over time and really see what you bring to the table. So I'm so excited to share this conversation. And I wonder if we can begin with what brought you just even to psychology in the first place, and then mindfulness. Were there key moments or turning points in life that you turned to as a pathway in career?
Well, yeah, sure. So as you said, I've been at this for 30 years, so it could be a long story, but I'll try to.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, way back when I was in my 20s, I was interested in psychology. And one of the things that brought me to, get a PhD and become a clinical psychologist with a graduate degree was that I was already in direct services type of jobs where I really came up against my own limits. There was I just didn't have the skills to really, really help people, which is what I was interested to do. So that led me to study psychology as my profession and luckily enough got into graduate school. When I was in graduate school, one of my favorite things to do, I was at a behavioral medicine rotation where I worked with people that had pain, headaches, all kinds of physical things. And they really had no idea that they actually had, the resources within them to improve their symptoms, to enjoy their life better. And so I learned how to use methods like biofeedback, relaxation training, et cetera, to help those folks when I was a grad student. And early in my career, once I finished, I was doing some research along with my colleagues about pain and using biofeedback. But I didn't know anything about mindfulness. This was back in the early 1990s. And I happened to go to a conference. And at this conference, guess who was presenting but Jon Kabat-Zinn? He presented about his research on mindfulness meditation. And I must say, I was completely blown away. I thought, it's like the spark went up. Wow. And that spark was really a spark of enthusiasm about how this might be really helpful to my patients. And so I'm very shy ordinarily. I might not seem shy right now, but I was very shy. And but I went up to him after his presentation. I said, "Where can I learn to meditate? Because I think this would be so helpful for my patients with
Oh.
pain." You know, and so I overcame my shyness to talk with him. And he pointed me towards some people in my community that I could learn mindfulness
Mm.
meditation from. And so I went back to Pittsburgh and contacted those folks, started meditating with them. Actually, we ended up doing workshops together sometimes.
Mm.
And what I learned fairly quickly was the most important thing was to practice myself.
Yeah.
So even though I was started with the motivation of helping my patients, what I learned was the amazing benefit for me as a
Mm.
person. And so I must say, I practiced meditation and with various teachers over 10 years
Mm.
before I even thought about learning how to teach to others.
Mm.
And certainly learn and trying to research meditation with my patients or research participants. So it was like 10 years before I was like, you know, so I feel like that really gave me, I had it on the inside
Mm.
because I had the research method training and
Yes.
research method experience, but then to bring what's on the inside to fruit or to from the heart to bring it
Yes.
to the participants. It really does feel like I'm very blessed, and it's a special place to be. So yeah, that's where it all started, and then with various colleagues have done various projects over the years, mainly funded by the
Mm.
U.S. National Institutes of Health.
Mm.
So,
What a beautiful journey and this embodiment of practice. In this day and age, mindfulness is everywhere. And, there's a lot of places where like, oh, let me just learn it and start teaching it tomorrow. And right. And here you've been in this long, beautiful journey that was sparked by a direct experience at a conference with John Kabat-Zinn. When you're sharing your story, you reminded me of a story by Mark Williams when he began with mindfulness-based cognitive therapy,
mhm.
and he didn't want to practice at first. And he mentioned that I had him on the podcast, and he said, I just wanted to do the research, and then I guess I did it, and like, wow, he hasn't stopped since. So there you are, a spark into
Yeah.
the practice. Yeah. So I wonder if we just go back to a couple of things that you shared.
Sure.
One of them is just behavioral medicine. For folks who are not as familiar, what is behavioral medicine?
Okay. Well, I'll do the best I can with
Yes.
defining that or telling it from my own experience
Yes.
and practice. So much in psychology or counseling or being a therapist, it's about mental health, right? It's about symptoms of depression or anxiety,
Mhm.
and nothing wrong with that at all. But in the field of behavioral medicine, sometimes called health psychology, there's a little bit more of a focus on the whole person, including um, physical symptoms, physical conditions, stress
Mm.
related things that can be impacted, influenced by the person's mindset, by their ability
Mm.
to relax their body or to turn toward, as we do in mindfulness. And
Yeah.
so much of psychology often, like, unless you want to have the training in how to be with the body and to use the resources of the body, it might not come up so much in regular old psychology or clinical
Yeah.
psychology. And so behavioral medicine is really focused on humans as whole people, perhaps where their behavior can have a very large impact on either their symptoms or their quality of life.
Yeah.
Does that help?
It's so helpful because as you're explaining it, there's an active part that we can each take in our well-being. And behavioral medicine seems to support us in that. Like, we're not just passive recipients of medicine, but what can we do in our behavior to support our own well-being? And that, sometimes it's very empowering as you're sharing it. Like, oh, there's things where I can do to help
That's
myself, right?
Yeah. So no, when you said that, what struck me is you said behavior medicine. The way you said it, I was like, our behavior is medicine. It can be.
Yeah. Yes, it's true. So creating change through behavior changes.
Yeah, and behavior can be, doesn't have to be like I'm taking a walk. It could be. It can also be considering my habit patterns of thinking
Yeah.
and making a decision and practicing letting go that. So behavior doesn't only have to be physical things we do. It can be our
Mm,
thoughts, our
yeah.
reactions. Yeah.
So behavior can also involve patterns of thinking, like how we get stuck in thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
You mentioned as well mindfulness. And so here's this intersection of behavior medicine and mindfulness. And maybe just how do you explain mindfulness for those who are new to it? And then we'll bring it together in terms of mindfulness, behavior medicine, and
Okay, good. Yeah, I was going to, maybe you'll let me do it a little different than you're
yes,
suggesting.
of course.
And I'll go to what is typically done in, or used to be years ago, and I think it's
Yeah.
still done today, in terms of studies in the field of behavioral medicine. We have
Yeah.
often used a intervention or treatment called cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
You might
CBT.
have heard about it, I'm sure you,
Yeah.
and maybe some of your audience does as well. But it's kind of a set of ways of being with our client or patient and helping them to notice what they're thinking, and maybe even prescribing things like helpful activities, etc. So that
Yeah.
it's a little bit kind of on the prescribed side. Like there's a better way to think about something than this negative way, and so that would be one way that I would characterize some of what we would typically do as behavioral medicine psychologists that are
Right.
doing research. Okay, that's cognitive behavioral therapy.
CBT.
And
So
and I was doing that.
challenging thoughts.
Yeah, so challenging thoughts or learning how to do what we call progressive muscle relaxation, learning how to let the muscles
Mm.
go, etc. And so I had a training and all that stuff. When
Mm.
I learned about mindfulness, it that stuff still is still in me, but mindfulness to me is so much broader and
Mm.
it's so much less prescriptive. It's like it's so much more giving, inviting each person to notice what's actually here. So for me, when I learned about mindfulness, I was like, yeah, cognitive behavioral therapy, that's great, but I don't want to do that anymore because mindfulness is about, as we learn to pay attention in this present moment and as best we can just be with what is here, and
Mm.
that can go for anything. When we experience that and we practice it, so much of the have to do this different, have to change your thought, have to da da
Uh,
da, it falls away.
yeah.
And there's almost like in my experience anyway, there's this upwelling of like, hey, it's okay. It's okay that sometimes the judge is yapping at you. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's less about changing your thinking and more about like opening up to being fully human, if that makes any sense.
Mm. I love how even you use your hand. There's like a bubbling up. You did this hand moving up, palms up, like a bubbling up, welling up of a new way of being,
Mm.
rather than this like I gotta fix me, right? Like so that's what I'm hearing from. It's like I don't not it's not don't fix. It's not about I gotta fix it. I'm broken here. I'm broken there. It's being of ourself, being of our thoughts, being with our emotions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I
Mm.
appreciate what you say about it's not about fixing. And because it's
Mm.
like there really is nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is so hard to digest for all of us. You like, because that's what led me to the path. Like, what do you mean there's no fixing? I want to fix me, and that's why I started originally.
Fix me and then fix that one and then
Yeah,
that,
and then
and then
fix
the
that,
rest of the world.
and then we're all fixed. We're happy fixed people. So what would you say to maybe listeners? Maybe this is new to them, and they're like, "Well, how helpful is this if I'm not going to go fix myself?"
You mean I'm sorry, how helpful is
Yeah, how
mindfulness?
does mindfulness? It's not going to fix me. There's that perception. What do you mean
that's
it's not fixing?
that's why we invite people to come to the orientation for MBSR,
Mm,
because we, of course, people sign up, they get interested and curious. Maybe their therapist tells them or their doctor tells them, hey, this might be helpful to you. And so they come in like, okay, what's this going to give me? and, and so folks come to our MBSR orientation and we learn that, whoa, you mean you're going to ask me to actually turn towards my feelings of anxiety or,
Yeah.
or have a different relationship with the thoughts? It's like,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
so, but, there's something that happens at those orientations where when we practice even for a few minutes and they get to hear, each person
Mm.
gets to hear from others as to why they're there. There's already a sense of community and a sense of possibility. So
Mm.
it feels to me like as we learn something in that orientation, the curiosity and the willingness kind of outweighs the like, I gotta get fixed, at least somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least for those who'd end up signing up.
That's so true. That's so true. Actually, I just had an info session a couple of days ago. And so when you're speaking about that, it just reminded me, yes, people come in eager. What is this mindfulness based stress reduction? Is it for me? Can it help me? How quick is it going to help me? Right. And am I fixable? Like that's often like, is it going to help my brain or my body? I guess there's misconception still out there about what mindfulness is. And do you still come across a lot of misconception about mindfulness yourself? Like people are like, oh, it's about quieting the mind. I still get that a
Oh,
lot.
yeah, yeah. So, one of the things that I'm often asked to do is give presentations, to various groups, and I have as part of that presentation is about the myths.
Mm.
Mindfulness meditation will clear my mind. I won't have any thoughts, so the little thing comes up. Good luck.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. So it really requires almost like a right turn. It's like, oh, wow,
Mm.
maybe there's something completely different. But it's true. And I think, that's true that there can be misconceptions. And it's a very interesting to me, and maybe to you too, Qasim, that as mindfulness becomes ubiquitous, you
Mm.
throw a rock and you're going to hit something that says mindfulness, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
As that becomes more and more, it's just right all around. There can also be a idea that it's just like, oh, just breathe or
Yeah.
just relax, calm down, and so nothing wrong with becoming a bit more able to relax or noticing those moments of calm. Um, but it's limited. So many of the people that take my classes and maybe yours as well, that's
Mm.
what they're looking for, and maybe that's what they gain. However, many have a greater touching in, which is like, I don't, stressors can still happen. I don't have to, I don't have as many buttons to be pushed.
Mm.
Yeah, I think we all have to work within those potential misconceptions, and just if we can embody mindfulness as teachers and meet everybody where they are, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe that's the best we can do.
Because we all arrive at something from whatever circumstance. And the beautiful part about mindfulness-based stress reduction is we're all on the same page. It's like we're here together, starting a journey together, whatever's showing up, which I really,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
yeah. A couple of things I'm curious about meeting things differently. So here is mindfulness. It's not about changing, fixing. And I'm wondering in terms of pain and health. So you talked about stress. So stress, we think of stress, oh, it affects my body, but what has my mind got to do with it? And then, and then there is pain. So, what is that link between stress and mental health?
How much time do you have?
Yeah.
so so as a researcher, there's a pretty strong research base for connections between stress and pain. I think what I would like to focus on is what I notice as I work with folks who have chronic pain or chronic stress, and what happens with mindfulness as they are learning either in a research program with me as the teacher
Mhm.
or in my community classes, which it's now I'm coming into the 20th year of doing MBSR at our Center for Integrative Medicine. So it's been
Mhm.
kind of a long time.
Mhm.
But people will tell me, some people do not make the connection between stress and pain. So I recently had a class in which some people came just for their pain, and and that was what they wanted to improve. Um, and it was like it took a few weeks and of listening to other people that they were able to connect. Oh, when my pain increases, I can tell, or something happens that gets me riled up, and my pain increases. That they hadn't made that connection
Mm.
before.
Ah.
So it's like, once again, people start where they are, and so especially with chronic pain, there can often be a holding in and a tightening around the painful part, and then that can be the whole body.
Mm.
And for some people, there is not as much awareness of the interconnectedness of mind and body and our thoughts and
Yeah.
feelings and our physical. No, not everybody, because you could have pain without, and you could be no problems with
Yeah.
stress, but for some people, that the meditation and the mindfulness can, I think, especially in an MBSR class, that practice of meditation in a group can help them to just open up to the possibility that their pain can be influenced by them, by their thoughts, by their way of being, and even by their physical tension. It's all interconnected.
Mm.
And so it might sound simple to you. It sounds kind of simple to me, but for some people, that's really, really profound to have that
Yeah.
awakening and the opening to that.
That's very hopeful and really transformative, because pain can feel so hopeless. Like there's nothing I
Yes,
can do.
yes,
And
yes.
I was actually reminded of that. Last couple of days I had a back spasm that surprised me out of a weird turn that I did. And then actually I woke up in the morning where I would normally go to the gym. I was like, I can't even put my socks on. And I literally went to the floor to put my socks on. And I'm like, I can get up now. And I'm like, I don't want to wake up my wife. And it was a really rough day, and just reminded me of the practice kicked in for me, because it's like, this really hurts now. Let's just breathe one step at a time. I can see clearly, like, if the practice wasn't there, I would have like really freaked out.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine how that would have made my pain worse.
Thank you. Absolutely. And I imagine, if you didn't have a practice, you might be turning towards your wife and, being crabby
Yeah,
or
yeah,
trying to get her to do everything for you or whatever. And it's
yes,
like, you know,
yeah,
and then
totally.
so it has an effect on relationships. Pain can definitely do that. Yeah.
I guess you're naming it can trigger reactivity, like, and we all have patterns of reactivity, and that's where mindfulness seems to intervene. Is that what you're seeing as well in what you teach and in your research? Like, where does mindfulness kick in?
Well, you know what? I'm reminded right in this moment of the title or name of your podcast. This is pause, and
Mm,
elevate. And so much of what the
mm,
folks in my classes and in my research programs, if I'm thinking specifically about pain, I'm recalling some people from the research class. It was about, chronic low back pain in
mm,
adults. One program was with older adults, one program was with, any adults. But one of the most frequently reported aha moments was like to be able to pause and like, wait, what
mm,
can I do for myself right now? And so the person that is
yeah,
taking care of her mother and taking care of her grandchildren at the same time and having to do all the household things or whatever, and was her pain would amplify during the day. It's like, oh, I could take care of myself. I could sit down and do something
yeah,
sitting instead of standing. And, just but those kinds of things of taking that pause and the wisdom to make a different choice can show up.
yeah.
So that for so many folks has been profound. And then
Mm,
I want to say also regarding pain, in the area of pain research, especially the kind of research that I do, which is mind body research, using meditation, sometimes using some physical movement, etc. Um, we don't always see a reduction in the amount or the intensity of pain.
mm,
Might go down a couple points on a 0 to 10 scale, but pain might still be there. But the amount that pain interferes with folks' ability to do what they want to do, that gets dialed down. And the amount that people are able to enjoy and be socially engaged, that dials way up. So even though,
mm,
like, I want my pain to go away, it's like, hey,
yeah,
my pain's still still there. It's just, it doesn't bother me so much.
Ah,
But I mean, some people do dial down their pain quite a bit. But it's
yeah.
not unusual that it's like, yeah, my pain's still there. It's just not bothering me so much. I don't
Mhm.
care as much about it. It's like the whole world has opened up in a new way. It's not a world of pain. it's a
Yeah. So from a contraction, even how you're describing it in your hands, like it's from a place of contraction. It's like a change of perception of the pain. The pain may still be there, but there's a change in relationship to it. Like it's there isn't that fighting. Like there is, it's just here. And I guess we don't have to like it. Like I certainly did not like the spasm. It wasn't like, oh, great, fantastic, it's here. Like it is here.
Mhm.
Now what do I do? How can I be with
Yeah.
it? And I guess that's what you're describing is there's a change in relationship and perception.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, absolutely.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to quickly thank you for stopping by and watching this content. It truly means the world to me that you're interested in creating positive change. I also want to invite you to join our amazing community. I have free events online about mindfulness, mindfulness-based stress reduction, laughter, as well as retreats that you can do from the comfort of your own home. And are you ready for this? Self-paced program that you can do about mindfulness and stress reduction. So you can join the newsletter below to stay up to date on all these goodies. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and press that button. It really helps me to keep this content going and reach out to more guests. Thank you so much again, and may you continue enjoying watching this episode. And is there, in terms of your research, certain areas of pain is specific? Like, is it migraines? Is it specific type of pain that you've seen in the research, or anything in the current literature that's you're finding interesting around pain
Well,
and
you
mindfulness?
know, yeah, so I can speak about that a little bit,
Yeah.
and I'll give you the caveat statement is that mostly what I've studied in terms of research studies is back pain, because back pain is
Mm,
very, very prevalent and it can become chronic in many, many people. So, meaning chronic means it's with us, not necessarily every day, but it's kind of like going along. It's not like it's
mm,
just gone. Your spasm hopefully gone.
yeah.
But with chronic low back pain, it's like it's there. And
Yeah.
sometimes it gets a little better, something get worse, and sometimes it go away for a little bit, then it comes back. So there's
Mm,
a real vulnerability there. So that's what most of my pain research has been about, and so that's what I can speak most
yeah.
closely to. And in fact, I wanted to get you the exact reference, but I don't have it right now. But I think
Mm,
it's the American College of Physicians has determined through the research on back pain and meditation is that MBSR, for those who are interested, is one of the first line non-pharmacological treatments for those who are interested because it has been shown over several studies to be helpful.
mm,
Yeah, so that's really cool. That's also true for cardiovascular diseases. For those who, again, not pain, but for mindfulness has been shown is enough evidence for mindfulness and cardiac type symptoms
mm,
that if for people who are interested in taking a mindfulness class, etc., it's a wonderful, helpful adjunct to other kinds of therapies. So it's
yeah.
the American Cardiology. This I don't remember the name right now, but the
Yeah.
American Cardiology Association. I'm probably
Mm,
butchering the name. Has
mm,
also recommended meditation and
yeah.
mindfulness as because of the helpfulness in the studies that have been done that show some helpfulness. So
Mm.
so that's a pretty big endorsement.
That is
So,
actually,
yeah,
yes.
and I guess I also wanted to say you asked me about what kinds of pain do I study, but
Mm,
when I teach the public course, the MBSR course at our Center for Integrative Medicine, we'll usually have maybe we might have 20 people in the course or whatever, and they're probably going to be 6 to 8 who have different kinds of pain issues:
mhm.
back pain, migraine, neck pain, maybe diabetic neuropathy. So there will be a set of folks in those classes that have various kinds of pain,
Mm,
and we often see the same kind of opening. They're more attuned to what's going on that might be causing something to kind of get, triggered, a pain issue to get triggered or whatever, and learning ways to, make different choices. Or if the pain comes up,
Mm.
like they don't, like you were saying, you don't have to fight it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Why me? Why is this here?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's really beautiful to observe, the changes in folks of many
Mm.
different kinds of pain issues, as well as stress and anxiety.
What a range that really
Mhm.
mindfulness can help. And you remind me as you're describing this research as well, in terms of what happened with me is I was actually started talking to my back with like, it's like, thank you, trying to take care of me, but all is well. I know you're spasming, thinking, you like to protect my spine, but I am okay. Like my conversation was like, I was like, okay, body, thank you. And it's funny, then I had a massage session with registered massage therapist, and she tested everything and vertebrae. She's like, we just gotta let that muscle know everything's okay, right? We gotta let it know everything okay, because it's funny. It's amazing how the body can still fire
Yes.
when it's not needed anymore.
Yes.
And then we think I can't do anything, I can't move, and my situation was minor compared to someone who's kind of chronic pain, but I was like, okay, how can I move that doesn't activate it or reminds my body the rest of the muscles are okay?
I love that you talk to your back.
Yeah.
And did your back tell you what to do, what it wanted?
It's funny you say that. It's like, yes, gentle movement. Don't push it. Don't get excited. Because I can get excited and just do more and then make it worse.
Well, I'm sorry that you have had the back spasm, but it's pretty interesting that it's happening, this week so we have
Lit-
it to talk about.
Totally. Like if we had done the recording 2 days ago, it would have been incredibly painful for me to be sitting. So I'm like, I was like, oh no, I don't want to reschedule this. This better improve. And yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking about so many things around research, pain, mindfulness. What is it like for you to be on both sides in terms of you're a practitioner of mindfulness, but also a researcher? Because actually it's pretty rare. So can you kind of take us to the backstage of like, what is it like for you? And what does that reveal to you being on both sides?
Because as you mentioned, it's kind of rare for
Mm.
somebody who's one of the research team, that writes up the study, helps to get it funded, et cetera, to also be the person that's teaching.
Mm.
And a couple things I want to say. One, first is mindfulness is everywhere. It's like, oh, we'll just study mindfulness, and here's what we're going to do. So someone who doesn't really know much about it or have it inside might actually do the field some harm by misconceptualizing a program,
Mm.
or maybe, they're going to teach MBS, they're going to have an MBSR research study, but they're going to take students. The students are going to teach it.
Oh, okay.
Graduate students.
Yeah,
I don't
they're
mean,
not trained in mindfulness
yeah,
based
they were
courses.
not trained to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
teachers. They're really haven't had that much life experience, maybe, and yet somehow they're going to be teachers, right?
Yeah.
And one reason some researchers kind of fall into that is that that's the method they grew up with. They were a interventionist when they were in graduate school. Well, so I can understand that, and it's also, like, to me, not okay.
Mm. Yeah.
Because there has to be integrity in the program, and so that's one of the things that I'm most proud of, is that I can be both. I know a lot about research methodology,
Mm.
including designing what you call comparison or control groups
Mm.
that could be put up for comparison against, say, an MBSR course. So in research, we have various ways of doing research. You could take a group of people and give them all a mindfulness class and see, oh, they're less depressed. That's great. However, it's even better if you can take a larger group of people and assign some of them randomly to receive the meditation MBSR class, and,
Mm.
and assign others to receive some kind of comparison group. Because,
Mm.
Chanson, if you sign up for a research study, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be in a study.
I'm
And
excited. Yeah,
your mood is a little bit elevated. You're like, this is good. This is
yeah.
important. So you might get better just from signing up, a little bit better,
Yeah.
right? So it's important to have a control group or a
Mm.
comparison group. So with mindfulness classes, it's like there's so much that happens, as you know. We're practicing meditation. We practice at home, hopefully. We have discussions in class. We feel
Mm,
connected with the other people. Our teacher is really there for us and
yeah.
embodying the practice, hopefully. So there's so much that
Mm,
happens. So your control group has to match at least some of those things. It has to match being in a group. You have to have a group of people because you might have benefit just from being in a group. Oh, these are really nice people.
right.
My pain's better because these people are really nice.
Yeah, we could be just chatting.
Yeah, the teacher is great. I loved it, and I'm going to answer all these questionnaires like it was really great. So you have to match some of those aspects that might not really be about the active ingredient, which we
Yeah.
think is mainly the mindfulness and the meditation practice. So
Mm.
as a meditator, I get to help design the control intervention. Okay, which it can be challenging. It can be
Yeah.
challenging because that control intervention has to be enough fun that people won't drop out. You have a lot of people drop out of your study. It's really hard to publish it. It doesn't. You don't have real good evidence that your
Yeah.
program worked. So it's very interesting. Way back, quite a long time ago, I had a lot of help with this, but I put the MBSR program into a 3-day retreat. It
Mm.
was and my colleague was a very good researcher named David Cresswell, and he's still here in the Pittsburgh area. But so I had to somehow put everything that we do in an MBSR class into a 3-day retreat,
Mhm.
and at the same time, there was another control group that got to practice some stretches, but they didn't, they were actually invited to count or tell jokes as opposed to being aware of their body.
Mm.
And they'd have discussions and do fun things. So we
Also
were all
three.
at
So it's
this,
also 3 days. So
yes, it's all at the
everyone's
same time
same time.
because
Got it.
it
Yeah.
has people have to be assigned like a flip of a coin to which one they
Ah,
get. So if you signed up, it's like, I really want to be in the meditation group, you might not get it. So that's
right.
another thing.
Right.
So, as a researcher, to design that program, help to design the control program, it was very interesting. How can we have a retreat that doesn't include any mindfulness, but it matches a lot of the discussion
Ah,
and matches the stretches? So it was really fun, and it was very challenging. The other group had a lot more fun than our group did because like, oh, I have to meditate now. Oh, I have to notice.
yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
laughing on the other side of the wall.
Wow. And then what did you find between those two?
Yeah, so it was a fairly small group of 35 people,
Mm.
but one of the very interesting findings was so the principal investigator is very interested in brain mechanisms of mindfulness,
Mm.
and so what he found, he people went through a brain scan before their retreat and
Mm.
after their retreat, and then they did a blood test a few months later. One of the really interesting things that he found was that there were some changes in the way that different areas of the brain connect.
Ah.
And in the people that practiced that were in the mindfulness group, the brain changes in that connectivity ended up being associated with later blood tests of inflammation in their body. So let me connect the dots a little bit, but
Yeah.
it provides some evidence that maybe practicing meditation could have an influence on physical inflammation in the body. And as you
Mm.
might be aware, or your audience might be aware, so many of the diseases here in our Western hemisphere and maybe everywhere um, are associated with inflammation,
Mm.
arthritis, diabetes. There are a lot of inflammatory processes that come on,
Yeah.
and they come on especially as we get older. So if we
Yeah.
can maybe do some practices, exercise, meditation that can
Yeah.
reduce, and diet issues too, that can reduce inflammation, helpful for health.
Mm.
So that was a really interesting study, very challenging, but had
Yeah.
some very interesting results.
Really interesting, fascinating. So you're describing as well like actual structural changes in the brain.
Well,
Like
these were actually more, it wasn't so much structural, but
mm,
some kinds of brain imaging, you can see when one part of the brain
connectivity.
is connecting and sending signals to another part. So it wasn't this particular study was
It's
not about structural changes. It was more about functional or what
functional.
happens. Yeah. So
Oh,
does one
yeah.
part of the brain send signals and connect with another part? So it's called
Mm.
functional connectivity.
Yes, but it's so encouraging that we can influence the connectivity in the brain,
Yeah.
right? Like we can
Yeah.
actually influence that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, so what a kind of insider's perspective you have, and in supporting research, and you really bring such a level of integrity to what you do. I've always deeply respected who you are and how you approach things, and with a sense of like sincerity. And really, we are lucky to have you in the research field, North America. We're lucky to have you, truly, because
Thank
you
you.
really, this is what we're needing. There's a lot of gimmicky stuff around a lot of things, and
Yeah.
wellness, and unfortunately with mindfulness there's a lot of misinformation about, oh, this is like a magic bullet, do this and then it will fix everything. But it isn't a magic bullet. Mindfulness isn't a magic bullet, but incredibly supportive for improving well-being, mental health, our body, and actually you named it too. It's living a life that has just more joy. Like, it's not just about
Yeah.
reducing pain. It's
Absolutely.
about how can we live.
Yes. Yes, thank you for mentioning that. And I want to say a couple more things about the research, and also, like everything in life, integrity and an open heart are required at every step. So in research, when you teach an MBSR class, like whoever signs up, then you see who wants to stay, whatever. If they drop, they drop. You try as best you can to meet them where they're.
Yeah.
In research, it's a little different because you need to recruit a broad range of people,
Yeah.
not just like affluent people who already know about mindfulness or whatever. You want to reach a broad range of people with a
Mm,
variety of, backgrounds, etc., and hopefully get them curious and interested enough to sign up.
mm,
And as you do that, you really need to show up. Had to
yeah.
show up for folks and what their questions are, and really have integrity. It's like, no, it's not a magic bullet.
Mm.
And it can be helpful. It's like it is magic, but
Yeah,
that
yeah.
magic might take 10 years or so to
Yeah.
to show up. But yeah, so for every step of the process, from recruitment to training the research staff that are going to actually talk to people, well, how to
Mm,
actually listen, how to listen to somebody on the phone that is curious, and how to best answer them, and also how to say, I'm not sure the answer to that. Let me get back to you.
mm,
So at every step of the way. And then once people do sign up, this most recent program that I've been involved with, we ended up having to do MBSR online for chronic low back pain. We did it online because of COVID.
mhm.
And so, we really wanted to be helpful in whatever way
Yeah.
we could. So one of the things we did is we did tech orientation. So many of our people were, maybe quite a bit older,
Mm,
had not had much experience even with computers, and so we'd work with them as much as might be needed to
yeah.
help them to connect online. And you know, whatever we find, we haven't analyzed the data yet, but
Mm,
whatever we find in terms of pain reduction, I know that people benefit because now they can have Zoom sessions with their family on the other side. So there's so many benefits that can happen that they don't see the printed page in terms of research publications.
mm,
So I feel so privileged that I've got to see the kind of benefits that people can have, even though maybe the science won't maybe be able to acknowledge that. It's
mm.
very beautiful to see,
Yeah.
somebody's like kind of like, oh, have that aha moment, and in how they treat themselves, how they treat others,
Mm,
what choices do they make? And that's
mm.
even beyond or aside from what happens with their pain.
Of course. I mean, these are like some gems, priceless learnings that is available in terms of
Yeah.
exploring mindfulness, mindfulness-based stress reduction. Is
Mhm.
how can I be with myself, and just moments of, like you said, kindness. Like, that's actually very powerful. There's so many of us did not learn that, and learn very critical way of being with ourselves and putting ourselves down, and
Yeah.
what's wrong with me, and never good enough. And so it's kind of new way of being with ourselves. And
Mhm.
this mindfulness keeps teaching me that. It's not like old patterns stop all of a sudden, but when they show up, it's like, oh, here it is again, old
Yes.
friend.
Yes. Hello, old friend. I see you.
I see you. Yeah, you're on. Yeah, yeah. This has been so enjoyable, and I know we're just at the end, but I wanted to ask you another question, if it's okay,
Sure.
which is, as you were mentioning, the name of this podcast is Pause to Elevate, and is there certain pauses that come up for you in life? You're like, oh, here's a form of, obviously mindfulness is a form of pause. Is there pauses in life for you, like, oh yeah, that supported me in
Mhm.
ways, whatever comes up? I'm just always curious and ask different ways that pausing has helped you in life.
You know, I think that what comes up for me is the pervasiveness of the pause. First, what came up as you mentioned that is that in my daily life, when one of those, I'll call them the committee members, wants to say, "Ugh, they shouldn't say that to me." Now, like, oh, what am I believing right now that is causing me to feel contracted and stressed? So that's a pause moment. And
Mhm.
another, I think, important pause moment for me is when I'm teaching, say, an MBSR class or a research MBSR class.
Mm.
Sometimes, and I don't know if this happens for you, but sometimes I don't know what to say. I don't
Yeah,
know what's needed to meet this moment. And so I'll just pause, just take a few breaths. And
yeah.
and often, well, it's always helpful. And I might even say, I had to pause because I just didn't know. And I was waiting for
Mm.
something to emerge, and I still don't know, or whatever, what I might say.
Yes.
And just by virtue of right there as the teacher taking that pause, everybody in that class has seen that and felt
Mm.
that kind of embodiment of which I would hope that they take into their own self. So
Mm.
does that make any sense? It's like they
Yeah.
see the pause in action. And
Yes.
it's like it's not like they're that teacher that knows everything. That teacher relies on this, like, maybe I can too.
Yeah. It's like being with the unknown, like we're not knowing, and
Yes.
just just being with that for a bit. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to take too long. Sometimes people are like, oh, I don't have time to pause. Well, it doesn't take too long. Just a few breaths, a few
You're
moments.
already breathing.
It's happening already.
And yeah, absolutely. And I often say to people, and I don't know if you like this analogy, but that practicing meditation is like spraying WD-40 on your reactions, your brain circuits or whatever. It's like it's so easy, much easier to take that pause and to just
Mm.
be open to what arises, that
Yeah.
to proceed.
I love that metaphor. I haven't heard that one before. I love that one. It's like oiling up the wheels. You know what I
So
mean? Like,
like greater flexibility of
yeah,
responding. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yes. And returning to balance sooner.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's been so enjoyable. And I'm wondering, as we close, what's the best way for folks to find you? And I can put in the show notes. Is it the website?
Um,
What's the best way if they want to learn more about your research or your work?
well, probably the easiest way would be, to email to me, and there's a couple things usually on my signature line. I've got the link to the website of the Center for Integrative Medicine,
Okay. Yeah.
and then they can learn when am I teaching again. And here at our center, I'm going to hopefully, cross fingers, have enough folks to do an in-person class here in Pittsburgh.
Mm,
But I have a wonderful teacher that has been working with for years who will hopefully do an online class, so a
mm,
virtual MBSR class. Um, so that's in mid-February. And then in terms of learning about the research, I could, if anybody's interested, I mean, my publications are on PubMed. You just do a search for Carol M. Greco and you'd find a bunch, or I
mm.
can send a link to my pubs. But it's
That
a
would be
lot.
great.
It's like 75 papers, so they might
Oh,
not quite.
wow.
Oh.
Maybe we'll give them one. We'll give them one.
Yeah.
Homework, everyone.
Oh, well, I think, what I'm very excited about is one of the studies that I told you about, this online MBSR for people with chronic low back pain. We actually we're working towards seeing, could this actually be something that could be implemented in clinics? It's not
Mm,
so much proving that it works, but it's like, could it work in clinics? We actually have a doctor that is part of the sessions, and she would meet with each participant for a few minutes
ah,
during the early checking in part. And that was really wonderful. And so
Mm.
those results are not available yet, but they should be soon. And I want to maybe get you connected with our main researcher, our principal investigator, because she might want to tell you about the research results once they're published.
Would love that.
Yeah.
I'd be very interested in that. So stay tuned, everyone.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
my email is the easiest one is just Greco, Greco, at pitt.edu.
Wonderful. And I'll put that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much. And any final words as we come to a close for today for listeners?
I think, my final words are just the words from the heart. I'm so happy that you're doing this. It's so lovely. I've known you for a number of years, and I really love the way that you offer to the world. As a researcher, I'm like, look at data.
Yeah.
It's just like you really embody, letting the world to know about mindfulness and the benefits of pausing and
Yeah.
the fruits that can come, with that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's truly such a pleasure to know you, to be with you, to have this conversation. And I look forward to many more. And I want to thank all the listeners for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, for watching. May your moments be filled with ease and may you be present in as many of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello there, and thank you so much for stopping by this channel. I hope you find this content useful, and if you do, feel free to hit that subscribe button. It will really help me to reach to more people and keep this content going. Here we are journeying together, and let's see where this takes us.